Imbalance in T helper 17 cells and targeted therapy in an infant with Sam-like syndrome. We have the definition. The Sam syndrome, which is characterized by several dermatitis, multiple allergies, and metabolic wasting, is a congenital skin disease caused by mutations in the genes encoding either desmoglein-1 or DCG1 or DCP. Application in medicine. Able treatments targeted Th17 cells include biologic drugs that are currently licensed for psoriasis therapy, such as ustekinumab and secukinumab. Ustekinumab was recently evaluated with encouraging results in 2 patients with DCP mutations, but we had obtained little cutaneous improvement in another patient with Sam syndrome who had DCG1 mutation.
Your study today of secukinumab, you showed that this is effective, the first drug shown to be effective in ankylosing spondylitis. Talk a bit about the pathway and how this drug works.
It's the first non-anti-TNF biological to be effective. Of course, TNF blockers are effective, but it's the first non-anti-TNF blocker that is effective. The pathway is well studied in experimental models. We know that IL-23 is the upstream cytokine driving cells to produce IL-17A, and IL-17A is a very potent pro-inflammatory cytokine, certainly in synergy with other cytokines such as TNF or IL-6 or IL-1. We have a number of lines of evidence that this pathway may be very important in this disease. It relies on genetics, where we have different genes that are associated with disease in this pathway, IL-23, IL-17. We have data from experimental models. When we overexpress these cytokines, the animals get spondyloarthritis-like disease. And we have data from patients where we look in the affected tissues that we see that this cytokine is upregulated. So that's the background for targeting this drug in this disease.
And one of the interesting things that you found is that the response is rather rapid.
The response is very rapid. We see significant improvement already from week 1 onwards for the primary and outcome parameter ASAS20, but also for other outcome parameters. So very quick response. I think that's clinically very relevant for the patients and for the doctors to see that the drug is working very quickly.
And also sustained responses as well.
Yes, so our primary endpoint was at week 16. I presented the data up to week 52, and we see that from week 16 onwards to week 52 is just a flat line. So the responders at week 16 completely maintained their response up to week 52.
And also good results coming out in psoriatic arthritis as well?
Yes, there were 2 other trials in psoriatic arthritis, which shows also very good results. ACR20 responses around 60%, so that's very good. And it's consistent with the idea that this cytokine IL-17 is not only playing a role in ankylosing spondylitis, but also other forms of spondyloarthritis, including psoriatic arthritis. Now that's important because here, of course, we classify patients for the clinical trial, but in clinical practice, many of our patients have an overlap between these different forms. So it's great to have a drug that is working for the different subtypes.
And so the next steps for this drug?
The next step, well, there are other phase 3 trials ongoing. And of course, I'm not the sponsor of this study, but it would be highly surprising that they would not go for registration of this drug for these indications.
Pro and cons. Pro, the improvement was evident 3 weeks after the treatment initiation, and week 35, the patient showed a marked cutaneous improvement. The cons are the treatment doesn't always work for all patients, and sometimes takes a long time to act.
This is an example of the important steps in psoriasis plaque formation. First, while it's unknown what originates it, dendritic cells in the body are activated. These dendritic cells then release interleukin 12 and interleukin 23. Interleukin 12 then goes on to activate Th1 cells, which in turn release TNF alpha and interferon gamma. IL-23 goes on to activate Th17 cells. These cells then release interleukin 17A, 17F, and interleukin 22. Together, these released cytokines cause keratinocyte hyperplasia, which leads to the plaque formation that you see here.
Issue apply in Ecuador. Approximately only 15% of patients who have received the treatment have improvements.
The Geckerman therapy, which was sort of invented back in 1920, was a combination of tar, which was noted to have good skin effects for skin diseases, particularly psoriasis, and ultraviolet light.
The big advantages to Geckerman treatment are that relief can be derived very quickly. Patients feel better in a short period of time, often within days to a few weeks.
Obviously, Geckerman therapy has been around a long time. We have a lot of experience with it. It's very safe.
So the advantages of topical treatments for psoriasis are that they don't confer the risk of serious infections and cancer that can be associated with biologic drugs. They also have a big advantage in that they work very quickly. So their onset of action is within days, and so patients can get a lot of relief quite quickly.
Typically, the remissions that we get from the Geckerman therapy average about 1 to 2, sometimes up to 3 years on average. I've seen it come back as short a time as 6 months. I've seen it go as long as 10 years. There have been a number of modifications since the original tar and the original ultraviolet light. We now have a number of different ultraviolet lights, and we have a number of different topical therapies. We really individualize the treatment for each patient.
I view my treatments here as a relief. My skin, when I'm admitted to the dermatology treatment center, is very red, very scaly, very irritated. The treatment that I do receive at the dermatology treatment center results in almost 100% clearing.
A patient's history really can determine whether or not they would be more appropriate for the day treatment center or whether biologics are a more appropriate option.
Conclusion. An infant with SAM-like syndrome was found to have a substantial increase in the number of T helper 70 cells. Administration of the monoclonal antibiotic secukinumab produced remarkable improvement with the symptom relief and restoration of normal growth.
Secukinumab effectively clears the skin in moderate to severe plaque psoriasis when compared to ustekinumab. Secukinumab is a recently approved drug for the treatment of adult patients with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. It is a fully human IgG1 kappa monoclonal antibody that selectively targets IL-17A, which is a pathogenic cytokine in psoriasis. This study directly compares the efficacy and safety of secukinumab over ustekinumab in the treatment of plaque psoriasis. The aim of the study is to compare and demonstrate the efficacy and safety of secukinumab over ustekinumab in the treatment of moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. The study included the subjects above 18 years of age, with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, and who were inadequately treated for plaque psoriasis 6 months before the study. Subjects who were previously exposed to the drugs, which were directly targeting an interleukin-17 receptor A, or interleukin-12, or interleukin-23. The study included 651 subjects, based on the inclusion and exclusion criteria. This was a 52-week randomized double-blind study. Logistic regression model was used to compare clinical responses with treatment group, randomized strata, and baseline PASI score as explanatory variables. Fisher exact test was used to compare responses between treatments. Analysis of covariance was used for comparing baseline values and study values in the subjects relating to pain, itching, and scaling. The subcutaneous injections of secukinumab and ustekinumab were administered to the study subjects. Secukinumab was administered in a dose of 300 mg, and ustekinumab was administered in a dose ranging from 45 to 90 mg, based on the body weight. The treatment success of psoriasis can be estimated by psoriasis area and severity index score, which measures the severity and extent of psoriasis. Investigators' global assessment scale was used to measure the severity of psoriasis. PASI 100 response was higher in the secukinumab group than ustekinumab at the 16-week study period. PASI 90 response was greater in the secukinumab group, which shows significant improvement in clearing the skin. Investigators' global assessment scale showed a considerable improvement in the secukinumab group. A higher reduction in pain was achieved with secukinumab at the 16th week, when compared with the baseline value. The study showed that secukinumab is superior to ustekinumab in clearing the skin in patients with plaque psoriasis. A higher PASI and IGA score indicates reduction in the severity of plaque psoriasis.